The model 1887 has officially received a nerf to its damage and a buff to its spread. This is the change I've personally been shouting for months at this point. But was this change enough to put the model into a balanced state? Well, the patch lowered the damage per pellet of the model from 16 to 13. This puts the damage of a full shot at 104. But they also added an additional pellet per shot, which brings the new total to 117. This change is generally negligible when it comes to playing against lights, but it does require just a little bit more skill in the matchup. Against medium, 2 shots with the model does 234 damage max, so where you could previously 2-tap mediums with the model, you now need to either hit a 3rd shot or quick melee after the 2nd shot to secure the kill. Finally, against heavy, the model is now in an interesting state. Pre-patch model did 384 damage in 3 shots, enough to 3-tap a heavy. Now, the model does 351 damage in 3 shots, meaning you can still 3-tap a heavy as long as you hit every single pellet. The outer pellets have also been brought closer to the center of the model's spread, allowing max damage shots from further range. On paper, this is the correct direction for the model. This weapon should act as a burst damage pressure tool instead of a pure 1v1 demolisher. Unfortunately, this patch didn't push the weapon far enough in that direction to make substantial changes to the meta. The biggest change we will see from this is that mediums can now select other weapons and have a better chance when fighting the model. But because the model is still extremely effective against both light and heavy, there's little reason for medium to actually swap weapons in the first place. However, as the current ranked meta is MMH with double model and 1 SA-1216, this flexibility might open up the opportunity for one of the 2 mediums to equip a different weapon to cover more ranges, likely the FAMAS, although it's much more likely that double model will stay in the meta due to ease of use as well as the synergy with the other model in the team. So what exactly was wrong with these changes? Well, they simply just weren't enough. Although the direction was perfect, 117 damage isn't enough to take away the insane frontline capabilities of the model. It remains as a weapon that breaks the boundaries of the medium class, giving your team an extreme advantage in mid to long range engagements with tools like Healing Beam and Defib, and then denying the enemy team any reward for managing to actually close that gap by using one of the strongest CQC weapons in the game. But the model officially kills slower than the medium rifles, so how is it still dominating the meta? The answer becomes clear when you look at design principles from other class shooters and compare them to the finals. In a game like the finals, with so much loadout freedom, balancing classes becomes extremely tricky. Class shooters are well known for relying a ton on using effective range to balance classes. Think Heavy from TF2. Insane DPS output, but almost entirely close range. Combined with a slow movement speed and large hitbox of Heavy, this means that although the Heavy has the highest HP in the game and insane DPS, the class remains balanced by leveraging short range and slow movement speed as a weakness for enemies to exploit, and also for the Heavy to play around. Another great example of this is Overwatch. Although there are no loadouts to choose from, the different roles still use range limits to balance and define how they contribute to the team, as well as giving them counterplay. Tanks in Overwatch, just like every other class shooter, use high DPS, ensuring that they can be punished for poor positioning or mismanaging cooldowns by giving the other roles an advantage in CQC if they're able to close the gap. Going back to the finals, this is also the angle Embark has taken to balance the 3 classes. Heavy is big, slow, and deals high DPS up close while having the least range of the 3 classes. Medium has great support and healing output, so their arsenal is focused on mid-range weaponry. This is why the model had so much range in the first place. And Light can spec into any range, but its arsenal is full of committal weapons, ensuring that your choice of a weapon heavily dictates your options in combat. Light is allowed to do this because its weakness of low HP is relevant at all ranges, compared to the weaknesses of a class like Heavy, which aren't super important when you're being shot at from 50 meters. Your large hitbox is still going to be relatively small, so a long-range weapon would still break your class boundaries, even if it's somewhat committal. Going back to medium, it's incredibly easy to see why the model 1887 is so problematic after understanding how the finals and other class shooters use range to balance. This is why the direction this patch took the model in was actually great. Less dominance in CQC and more from around 10 to 15 meters. If Embark nerfed the damage of the model again by 1 damage per pellet and buffed the spread, this would put the damage per shot at 108 and make the weapon more reliable from that low to mid range where it should shine. This would result in it dealing too much burst damage to ignore, but not enough to repeatedly contest heavies in a 1v1 up close. A 108 damage model with tighter spread is what would finally end the model meta without killing the weapon. Hopefully we see something like this in the 5.0 patch, just in time for us to find out if the new shotgun teased by Embark is going to be put on medium, inevitably taking another 5 seasons to balance.
You have to hold the item.
Yeah, you have to hold a scrap.
Wait, where do I hold?
You know,
Wait, where am I
Batman
putting
told me
stuff
to
in
always
the
bet on black.
Oh, Batman led you astray.